You let me know, Ellie. We begin today by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Willistock Way. These territories are covered by treaties of peace and friendship of the Willistock Way people, first signed with the British Crown in 1725. I now call our meeting to order. And I'd just like to take a moment tonight, before we begin our regular session, to recognize Director Marty Forsyth. Recently, for those who have not seen the picture or heard the news, Director Forsyth was presented the King Charles III Coronation Medal by our Member of Parliament, Jenica Atwin, on February 25th, 2025. The medal was presented to Director Forsyth for his exceptional services to the community. So please join me in congratulating Director Forsyth in this wonderful accomplishment. Congratulations.
Pretty long hand to be fair.
The attendance has been taken. Yes. Approval of the agenda.
Bob, you approve the agenda, Dave Morrison. Second it, Bob Paloromato.
Any discussion? Ready for the question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Are there any conflict of interest for disclosure this evening? No? Okay. We'll go now to number 5, the consent agenda. A, approval of the minutes, February the 4th, 2025. B, audit committee report. C, public safety committee report. D, oversight committee report. E, community development committee report. F, economic expansion committee report. G, regional infrastructure committee report. Can I have a motion
So
to,
moved, Marty Forsyth.
Seconded, David DeClissy.
any discussion? Ready for the question?
Question, please. One question.
Yes.
Economic Expansion Committee report. It's not directly related to the report that's in here, but at our last meeting, there was a report that was distributed around from another economic expansion report. Committee rather meeting. And I was just wondering if that report showed objectives for 2025. We have a similar report that showed how the KPIs were met in 2024.
Madam Chair, the proper
Oh.
case would be, Director Fox is questioning the content of the report, and it should be moved to the actual agenda where the report can be presented and there can be a robust discussion around.
Yes. So right after this motion passes, then we will go to that on the
Okay.
agenda. Okay. So we had a second. Any discussion? Ready for the question? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Now, we will go to Economic Expansion Committee report, and you can ask your question now, Dr. Fox.
So I guess to simplify the question, has there been a report that identifies how the KPIs were met in 2024? I believe. So we had the report that was distributed following the previous meeting showed a lot of their objectives and their goals for 2025. We have a report that's been distributed or seen by the Economic Expansion Committee that tells how the KPIs were met in the previous year.
Did you want, oh, sorry, Madam Chair. Director Nicholson, did you want to take that or do you want?
You can do it, and then, but that last report that we did was basically on one part of the economic expansion committee. So we were dealing with night and tourism in the previous, if that's the one that you're talking about.
Yeah, that's, but it shows the goals for 2025. Have we had any review of what KPIs were met in 2024?
Yes. But Madam Chair, Director Nicholson, if you will, we can get you that information. Director Fox, there would be a report on that.
I think the KPIs for 2024, and David and I are both on the Ignite board, and I think they were presented at the last Ignite board, and if not the last, the one before.
Yeah, it would have been the last meeting we had. They were
Yeah.
presented to us, yeah. So they have them.
They have, and they'll be presented at your AGM, is my understanding, and then we'll have that report, Director Fox.
Okay.
So we'll have that by the end of April.
Okay. Okay, then we will move on to number 6, committee reports, government.
Excuse me, Madam Chair, since it's come off the consent agenda, you will require a motion to accept a second motion to accept the report.
So.
Second, any discussion? Ready for the question? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Now we'll move on to number 6, reports, governance committee, Director Sweeney, please.
Okay, the meeting is called to order by the chair at 2 p.m. Considering the matrix structure and service changes to the RSC in 2023, it is prudent to carry out a thorough review of the commission's procedural bylaw to ensure that in alignment with current operation needs, governance, work frameworks, and legislative requirements. The committee reviewed key topics for the procedural bylaw review and summarized in the attached report. The directors discussed important questions arising from the NC advisory report, including potential changes to the budget process, changes to the meeting structure, broadcasting of meetings, enhancing governance and conflict resolution methods, the use of a consent agenda and board meeting frequency and associated cost. The discussions aimed to address the evolving needs in the organization, and the committee is asking the board to reflect on what changes should be made to the bylaw. And I'll turn it over to Don to go through the.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, Madam Chair. We are diverging from our standard practice of working through the governance committee, where staff would suggest, I'll call them modest or administrative changes to the bylaw based on things that we bumped into during the year that didn't work all that well for us. But since 2023, with new services, new communities on the board, and significant new people on the board, we thought it was time to do a little more in-depth, higher level, if you will, review. And we based that on our review of the report that was done by the MC Advisory Group. And that's the document that we went through during the winter summit. And so a number of questions were put to the governance committee that I think would inform any type of clause by clause work that we might do on the bylaw. And the first one has to do with our budget process. There were a number of comments in the MC advisory report about I think it's fair to say some level of dissatisfaction with the budget process as it currently exists. The one comment was that, there was a perceived inability to revisit or negotiate things that have been put in the budget after the timeline for amendments had expired, which, worked backwards from our legislative structure. And so as we thought about that, as staff thought about that, how can we have more transparency and flexibility? The question that we asked is, should all the directors be participating in the budget process rather than just the finance committee? Or should we keep the current process the way it is? If all directors were to participate in the budget process, we would have a committee of the whole rather than the finance committee deal with that. Discussions in committee of the whole would provide a less rigid discussion regime for directors to talk about the budget. There are a number of advantages to that. All board members are fully informed because they're sitting through the entire budget review. You know, it's, people would argue that it's, greater transparency and certainly, more collective decision-making. On the negative side, if we go with that, you know, we could find ourselves in longer, more complex deliberations. It could be more difficult to get to, where we need to be with the budget. It can get to be repetitive, and circular. And it certainly would place a greater time demand on the directors. So when the committee discussed that, there were mixed opinions, but there was a slight leaning towards all directors being involved. And so to assist staff in developing the right technical language to facilitate the board's collective desire, we need a little more clarity than that. And so the question that we'd like to hear answered, or the directors provide their opinions on, is which you prefer. The entire board sitting through the budget sessions, and as a result of that, the committee of the whole would make a recommendation to the board. It would still come to the board. But presumably all the issues would have been dealt with during that work. Or do you prefer to continue the way we are, have the finance committee do that review, be empowered to do that review, and bring a budget to the board for, to recommend for them to distribute? So, Madam Chair, I don't know how you want to proceed, but we're very curious to hear from everyone on that. Because what we want to avoid is a bunch of work, technical work around clauses that ultimately we bring with our bylaw review and the board says no.
So did you want a decision tonight?
We'd like some direction tonight. We're looking for direction. The actual decision will be when we present the revised bylaw, and the directors will express their approval or non-approval of that. But we're really looking for direction as to which road do we plow here.
Okay. So I'll just go around the table and chat with the director.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes.
Don, could you just maybe clarify the timeframe changes that are involved in this, that you talked about the 15 days?
Sure.
And also about the amount of times that the amount of time that directors will have to spend in summertime if we were to go committee home.
Right. So, Madam Chair, in parallel with this opportunity to change the way that we do, directors should be aware that we no longer have to circulate the budget for 45 days before a vote can be held. In the new regulations that came down, that time frame has been reduced to 15 days. And so and that's a good thing from our perspective in the event that there are going to be different iterations of the budget. When we talked about what did we think was an appropriate amount of time to expect the budget deliberations to take place, we see 2 or 3 afternoons. Typically, the finance committee meets for an hour and a half. Staff have prepared a draft. The committee has an opportunity. There are only a few people to ask questions. And but if we're going to deal with a group of 14 and deal with potentially 14 questions per issue, we need to provide more time. So I think it's reasonable to assume that a switch to committee of the whole would take 3 afternoons, 3 separate afternoons with an interval in between each one as staff would digest the direction and modify. Right now, our budget period from the staff perspective, we're very close to beginning the work on our 2026 budget. Typically, the way that has worked in the past is that you know that work by staff concludes in July. And then the finance committee gets together a couple times in August. So it's possible that we could be looking for 3 afternoons in August, or in August. We may, as a result of only having a 15-day period, we may be able to have those sessions in September. Because we no longer have to have the budget out sort of in a vacuum for 45 days. Now it's only 15. So we may be able to do those sessions in September. I'm guardedly optimistic that we can do that. But I haven't had a chance, we haven't had a chance to talk to Mary Kay about that because she's on leave at this time. So, but it is more, it's a bigger time commitment of the directors to do it that way.
Thank you. Yes,
I should be clarifying, the 15 days. In thinking about the 15 days, we have to think about when communities would have the opportunity to view and respond. They typically meet once a month. So the 15 days, they work for one part of our decision making, but it may not give communities the opportunity they need to see them. So just a clarification of what's on that.
So yes, that's true. That's why we're pitched it to you first. It's 3 afternoons in July. So we're still anxious to get some type of direction from the body.
sure. Dr. Powell?
Well, I'm for having all the directors involved in the process. And it gives us more clarity and more information, and when we're there, we can discuss it more instead of it coming to the table to vote on it, and then people are bringing it up and changing motions and amendments. And this way there'd be no surprises.
Okay. Dr. Mullen?
It's in both ways. I'm not a lot of committees in my time. You select the committee style. I'm going to go with the committee style because I think it's important.
The committee style.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, yes. Dr. Fox?
I'm gonna propose something totally different. Not totally different, but why not continue with the committees? The committee method to get to the first crack at it. Present that to a committee of the whole. And then we can work through those details that you're talking about at that stage, before we get to the point where we recommend it to the board. It's a little twist on the whole thing, but then that allows the finance committee to do it in August, as we've done in the past. We bring it early in September to a committee of the whole, and it still allows that time frame, but it wouldn't have the committee of the whole right at the first crack at it, because it could get really convoluted if we try and work through it as a committee. That's my suggestion.
Okay. Dr. Borsak?
I kind of like that. I like the committee because having everybody in there and having say we could be in there is not enough. And maybe that could take 3 days. The first year, it was every which way but loose. Second year, it was getting better. I'm thinking the third year is gonna be real easy. That's why
I
I'm
don't know.
Man, you're an optimist.
I mean, I just seeing what went on, so I think if the committee does it and bring it like into a special meeting, that we all sit down and go over the budget with clear heads. And then it goes back. I like that idea, but I still want to keep it in committee because that just puts too much pressure on staff. They do a good job on the budget and stuff like that. If you have 12 of us sitting around there, instead of the group, the committee of the group, get it and then bring it to all of us. I think that's a better idea. I like his idea.
Thank you.
I like Marty's idea. It's gonna get easier the third year.
Anyway, I lean to the committee
side, the finance committee. I don't think it's worked too bad in the past. Yes, we had an issue the first year, a few issues, but I think if the finance committee, once they screen things out, they can take it to the board, and the board still has the final say. It's, the committee doesn't make the ultimate decision, so. So the board directors have to have faith in the finance committee, the same as we all have faith in all the other committees at this table. We don't all sit on them, but we need to put our trust in those committees looking after that for this board. And I think the same should apply to the finance, and the board gets to say at the end of the day, so.
Thank you.
I'm really more in favor of a committee of the whole model, but I like Director Fox's twist on that. And the reason is that committee of the whole is that this is the one we take back to our communities and we get their feedback. And so the committee of the whole allows us everyone the opportunity to come up to speed with what the issues may be, what the questions may be, where the concerns are from some other players around the table. And we're not forced to a vote. We're looking for consensus at that level. But I like Director Fox's twist because the first cut at it, sometimes there are some not obvious things that might make it easier to move through. There was the first year, I remember there was an issue came up. It worked right through, and that might not have been as easy in a committee of the whole, or so my preference would be the committee of the whole, but with the finance committee just taking a first review to take the bumps down a little bit, I guess, you know.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I like, Director Forsyth's comments, and it is getting easier. Every time we do want to get more used to it and getting it better. But I like the, finance committee doing it. I mean, when the finance committee presents the budget to the board, the directors have ample opportunity to make comments on it. They have ample opportunity to bring it before the council. It's not brought from the committee and we don't vote on it the very next day. So there's lots of opportunity for all kinds of input and questions. So I think the system that we have now is working extremely well. And like Marty says, it's certainly getting better. So.
Thank you.
At what point can we take the budget report to the communities? At any time?
Madam Chair, to take the budget to the communities, the board is required to pass a resolution asking the communities to consider this budget. And that's the beginning of what used to be the 45-day clock, but in 2020, for our 2026 budget, that'll be the beginning of a 15-day clock.
So if I understand what Director Fox is saying, if we wouldn't be able to take it to our communities until after it was brought to all the directors at the meeting.
Right, what used to be the September meeting, in the old system, we work through, the board works through its committee, its work, however it structures it, to ultimately land at a board meeting where the board says, yes, this is the budget that we would like distributed.
Right, okay.
And before that, you can't take the budget to your communities.
Right, so but I think if I'm reading you right, that you had suggested that we have the committee, then we could take it to our communities while we're having the discussion with the committee in the whole.
We do the committee of the whole, get it to a point where we then approve it for.
And then it comes to all the directors. Okay.
And you still have some time because of the shortened time frame from 45 to 15.
Right, okay. I just was foggy on that.
Which way would you like to go?
I like that approach.
Okay, thank you. Next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question to staff through you. 15-day would be a minimum. We could actually set whatever period we'd like, right?
Madam Chair, that's correct. 15-day is a minimum. The board could allow its communities a longer time to review the budget if it wished. And so The reason for the change in the legislation, as I understand it, having a deadline of November first to have the budget in and a 45-day period for communities to review, more or less fix the September meeting, first Tuesday in September, as the date that the budget needed to be presented to the board. And the board needed to decide, if the board were to decide not to distribute that budget and ask for another budget, we would almost certainly be in a box where we couldn't meet our legislative timeline.
Thank you very much for answering my question. I guess my perspective is I'm very comfortable doing what the city of Fredericton's been doing, that I've been able to participate in over the last, I guess, 13 years now. And that is, we cancel normal finance committee meetings and switch to a council and committee budget meeting, which is a council of the whole scenario. And it took us 5 evenings, and not more than 2 hours per evening to move $185 million budget across the goal line. So, and be done. I would be all right with the finance committee staying and, guarding budget like it has in the past, if we open up committee members so the directors can serve as they choose. Because then we get the best of both worlds. People that think they have something to add and want to be involved and want to be more engaged, we can take advantage of their energy and their hard work. But it doesn't become a requirement for the rest of the board, and I still have time to oversee afterwards. That would be my preference.
Thank you.
Well, I've been involved in that the last couple of years, and I don't think it has got any easier, as might have been suggested. But, well, good try though, good luck there. But, what I would suggest, if I could make a suggestion, would be, the committee works fine, and they've submitted what they thought was really sound budgets. And however, when they got to the point where we presented it, there was lots of thoughts, maybe because the committee didn't have a representation from Fredericton on it, that was because they have unique problems or things that maybe we didn't consider. So my suggestion would be, leave it with the committee and then ask the major centers or Moncton and Fredericton if they would like to put a committee member on it, so that we could work those problems through prior to it coming to the table. That's what I would say.
I just want to make a correction here. With the finance committee, City of Fredericton, we have Director Pete Rogers on that.
Okay, well,
Yes, it's coming budget year. You wasn't last year.
No, when did she do that?
Last year.
Last year. Yeah.
then can I say that we would only hold the meeting if they could attend?
No. That might run into some issues.
I'm just, I wasn't kidding.
I wasn't either.
Yeah, I know, I appreciate that. Thank you. But fine, I would suggest staying with the committee, and then we look to have our committee members attend. That is the
Thank you. It's been recorded. We'll go to Director Faulkner.
Yes, so everything's working the way it is. We better change it. I'm leaning towards leaving it with the committee. Giving them a chance to continue their work. And I mean, it is getting somewhat easier. Timelines are changed. I think we need to continue the way we're going.
Thank you. Director Hayward, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The only question I would have for the group as a whole is I don't think if it was a committee of the whole scenario that we would have made many more inroads than we have with the committee, finance committee as itself. I believe we still have had the same delays and issues either way, but a huge improvement going to the 15-day window from the 45-day window. This definitely gives us more opportunity to provide whatever input we need and to still meet our timelines. I would prefer to stay with the committee model.
Okay, thank you. And I would like to say that I would like to go with Director Fox. His proposal. I like that, the finance committee, and then come back to the board as a whole. So.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Kelly, but according to my notes, we have more directors who would like this dealt with at committee initially. And I think that would leave staff time to consider putting in a board and committee board meeting as a whole in between that and the time that it actually goes to the board for a decision. And we would have some flexibility around that now with only a 15-day window. I'd like to suggest that staff can go away and work on that. And when Mary Kay returns, we can look at the effort that's required inside finance to support all of that and set a structure that meets your needs. But I think we have enough to do the technical work inside the bylaw. So it's been very helpful from that perspective.
Okay, thank you. Go on to the next one.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the second question was one that it came out of comments that were made inside the report where directors were looking for what they referred to as a safe space for open dialogue, and they commented that the meetings lack a secure platform which prevent directors from, and this is a quote, from expressing genuine concerns or differing opinions. And then there were comments like, you know, we have really good discussions after the meeting pushes and the camera's off. So the question for the board to consider is, do you want to continue to broadcast these meetings? You're under no obligation to do so. Your legislated obligation is to have the meetings open to the public. And you would satisfy that requirement if you didn't broadcast and you simply left the door open for people to come in and sit in a customer lobby. We represent a large region where travel to our meeting would be an issue for some people. But if you choose to continue to broadcast these meetings, you have to accept that people are going to hear what you say. And you just have to deal with that. So I would not have raised this issue in the normal course if not for the fact that it was mentioned inside the governance report that our consultants delivered.
Okay, so you would like to know the director's
Opinion as to whether or not.
yes or no,
Yeah.
right? So we'll go this way this time. Director Haywood, yes for being broadcast, no for not.
Yes.
Director Faulkner,
Yes.
next.
Yes.
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 Okay, so I say yes, so it's yes for that.
Not an unexpected response, but it was an issue identified in the report, so
Yes, yeah.
I thought it warranted the question.
Madam Chair.
Yes,
I just want to, regarding this point, I think it's a valuable concern that you brought up, because it is asking a lot of people to think and speak on the fly publicly on complex issues right before you make a decision. But I think the chair's done a magnificent job, handling you know, the conversations that they've gone around the table, and we've leaned heavily on the respect and the time we spent with each other at meals and other strategic planning sessions and stuff. I think we solved this problem by, you know, working together.
Yes.
Right? I think
Thank
we've done a
you.
pretty good job.
Thank you. And most times I don't even concentrate on that we're being live streamed. Like, and if you have something to say, you should say it regardless.
Yeah, right.
You know, we should feel comfortable saying it.
I don't think anybody here has any problem saying it now.
No, I don't.
You know what?
We all encourage.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next one.
Thank you, Madam Chair. One of the comments that was inside the MC advisory report was directors suggested stronger governance with conflict resolution methods could mitigate some of the tensions around the table. The question comes up because at the staff level, we're not really sure what is meant by stronger governance practices. And in discussion with the committee, when we raised this issue, the committee members each said that they didn't make that comment, and they weren't able to provide staff with kind of any insight into a desire for stronger governance. And so if we're going to develop a bylaw that includes stronger governance practice, we need some direction as to what's actually meant by that, because that's kind of a more or less a motherhood statement. We need some more detail if we're going to respond to the director's wishes there.
So I don't expect anyone to speak up tonight, but if you can provide clarity on that, by all means, send an email off to Dawn, please. Okay?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Can I say something on that?
Yes,
I don't think that we need more motherhood and more rules I think in fact, if anything, say what you mean and don't get your feelings hurt. It's okay to have an opinion at the table. So that's my feeling.
okay. It's just that someone did make that comment, so out of respect for them, I would ask that they could send an email off to Dawn and clarify it. Yes,
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't know who put that in the report either, but I'd be happy to send an email off too. I sit on a couple of boards for the city, including pension, where we have to demonstrate that we're actually doing online or, you know, professional development around governance. I've done a number of sessions with the Financial and Consumer Services MB group. They do best governance practices and so on and so forth. And I'm sure there's a lot of small things, but sometimes it's the small things that can really add value to governance for an organization. So thank you for the opportunity.
thank you. Okay, so we'll leave that at that and we'll move on to the next one.
The next question that came up, the theme that came up, and it seemed to come up in more than one case in the report, was comments around procedural rigidity, limiting meaningful engagement. And so our meetings, this meeting, for example, this discussion that we're having now is a little atypical, but our monthly meetings are business meetings. And our bylaws are structured in such a way that we discuss things that are on the table. To discuss them, you need to have a motion. And there are rules around how many times you can speak to that motion and how long you can speak to that motion. So it is highly structured. If the directors would like to have a more flexible way to discuss this, it's the board and committee model. And in the board and committee model, you don't need you don't need a motion on the table to discuss an issue. There's no limit to the number of times you can speak beyond, you know, the patience of the chair before the chair starts to say this, you know, this conversation started to circle and we need to wrap it up. You can't make any decisions in a board and committee meeting, but you can make recommendations for the board to consider. So on the positive side, it provides a forum for more informal discussions. And it encourages some deeper engagement perhaps on an issue, and certainly promotes consensus building before you get to a vote at a business meeting. And it allows for more open-ended discussions. It has a tendency, it sometimes to be circular meetings where you revisit the same thing. It requires additional meeting time, and the less structured discussions might be not having the same level of transparency that more formal ones do. So we could live in a world where our business agenda that is going to be offered at a board meeting, that there's a meeting before that that's in committee, where directors can ask more questions, exchange more views, rather than receive the reports of the committee. And I guess it's under our current model, you receive the committee reports, you have a week to review them, to reflect on them, to form your opinion as to work that the committee has done, and determine how you're going to vote. In the other model, you would actually sit down and be a part of that broader discussion and collectively make a decision about what you want to recommend to the board. And the board would largely at that point, except for very unusual circumstances, really be a rubber stamp. Because you know what's coming out of, I should say you should know what's coming out of the board and committee meetings. So and tied to that is, if you were to go to that model, then you probably should reflect on whether or not you want to have any other committees anyway. And do everything through the board and committee, which is a model that's used by organizations throughout the world. And in New Brunswick is a model that's used by some of the service commissions. So if we're looking for more meaningful engagement, more dialogue at the board level, this would be the classic way to deliver that. And so we'd like some direction, Madam Chair, with respect to, do we start to flesh that out in terms of the wording around the bylaw?
Okay, do you understand what he's asking, Director Powell?
Well, kind of. I'm in favor of the procedure we're using now.
Oh, thank you. Okay,
Same as me, I'm sorry.
okay.
I'm happy with the way things are.
Me too.
Me too.
Gee. 1, 2, 3. Here I am. I'm really more in favor of a board and committee model, because I think we would have more understanding of most issues. Tonight I read through the reports, but I didn't ingest them. And down through, look through, is there anything here that jumps out at me when I'm listening to the conversation sometimes differently? This table will change in 2026. We don't know how dramatically it'll change, but it will change. We won't all be back. And so the council or the board and committee model, I find with my own council, gives everyone a chance to come out and have their discussion, more discussion on the subject. So for me, it works better.
Okay, thank you.
So far, I'm a real minority, but
I realize that.
When you have 14 strong directors around the board, you need structure in order to get anything done, or it turns into a free-for-all. So the way we're doing it now, following Robert's rules for the most part, works for this board as it does for most other boards.
Thank you.
I would agree with that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess my question would be, why can we not just change the rules of debate so that our standing committees, you can speak more than once? I can do that. Stroke of a pen by hitting 6.7.3 limits of debate, adding a little phrase, and then all the structure stays the same, but it creates a little more capacity for conversation at the standing committees where that's supposed to be happening. That's the city of Fredericton's system. We have a standing committee system where you're allowed to speak more than once. But you're allowed to speak more than once, subject to the chair's approval. You know, at our council meetings, as we are here as directors, so. We make a small change, we don't have to upend the whole ship, I don't think. It's my opinion.
Madam Chair, that's a very good point, but I would draw the director's attention to the fact that our standing committees don't have rules around how many times they can speak. The
The rules of debate don't apply to the standing committees?
No, the standing committees, they don't make recommendations, they don't make decisions. And they're involved in a broad range of discussions and dialogue back and forth. That's been the practice. And you know, we may want to provide clarity to that in the next draft of the bylaw. The bylaw may not actually reflect that, but that has been the practice.
Okay,
Maybe we need some more language then around the specific duties of the standing committees then, because when you say they don't make decisions, they make decisions to forward information to the board,
They
You
make
pass
recommendations.
motions.
Yeah, they make
right? And they
recommendations.
vote on motions.
They don't vote. They find a consensus. There's no vote in our committee.
That needs to change too.
okay. Anything further?
I think that having a committee, we get a lot done. We got a lot on the table as a committee as a whole. From my experiences, it gets bogged down into the details and you won't get half of what you're getting done, currently done. And so my feeling is we should stay the way we are.
Thank you. Director Faulkner?
I'm fine with the way it is.
Thank you. Dr. Hayward?
I would first stay with the committee structure.
And my decision is to stay with the way that we've been working with. So I think we got clarity there. Yes, thank you. Okay, next one.
So, Madam Chair, the next one is a curious question, and it has to deal with whether or not the board would like to continue to use the consent agenda. And this question has come up. It's not in the MC advisory report. It's a staff observation. You know, just to put things in concept, until very recently, we didn't use a consent agenda. And then 1 month, we found ourselves overwhelmed with committee reports. And the only way to even have a chance at finishing within their targeted time was to put things on a consent agenda. And it seemed to be well received by the board. But at one meeting, one of the things on the consent agenda was a staff report dealing with lobbying, in particular, the provincial government. And the staff report identified a number of pros and cons and recommended that this board did not have the expertise, time, energy, initiative, and that lobbying as a group was outside of a good strong mandate for us, recognizing that municipalities have their own organizations, either on the staff side, the Association of Municipal Administrators, and on the government side, UMNB, that were well structured to lobby for those kinds of things, and that passed. It was adopted. But before the hammer went down that night on the committee, they started to talk about lobbying the government if we had unanimity, which obviously was, you know, if the board decides it has unanimity and wants to lobby, that's an individual decision that you can make, but you had adopted a policy position that really reflected the fact that the path to unanimity can be destructive and hurtful itself, given the differences that we have in our communities, large versus small, rural versus urban. So I guess what I'm saying is, from a staff perspective, we really need you to go through the consent agenda. If you have something to say, like we did this evening, let's take it off. It only takes one, don't there's no, it's not misbehaving to suggest that something come off the consent agenda and be subject to decision. The only things that should stay on that are the things that you as a director are absolutely on side with, have no question. And if we have 14 directors who feel that way, the item will stay on the consent agenda and be adopted. And if one director has a question that they would like to put, no matter how small, please, during the consent agenda, say, you know, I'd like this removed for discussion. It's not a bad thing. So if we continue to use the consent agenda, and I think you do want to, I'm obligated to say, we really need you to read it carefully.
So you want to know if the directors are in agreement with the consent agenda, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, we'll start with Director Hayward.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe tonight's a perfect case in point where there was an item on there to be further discussed or scrutinized. But each director has the opportunity to do that. So
Absolutely.
I think that system is working very well. With today is a perfect example.
Thank you. Director Faulkner?
I'm fine with using the consent agenda. I mean, we can always, if there's something we don't want to discuss, just ask to take it out.
Leave it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a question. So the city budget is not 38 consent agenda for most of this mandate. We only pull things if a council member wants a formal vote on it. We still allow discussion of the items without it being pulled off. Is that possible here?
I'm not certain. And in fact, my first experience was with consent agendas was under the Bernays system when I was the chair of the Board of Governors for St. Thomas University. And I don't think Bernays allows a discussion of something that's on the consent agenda in it to remain on the consent agenda. It's been 10 years since I've been in that environment, so my understanding could be clouded. The purpose of the consent agenda is to pass administrative items on which there's no need for further discussion. If we want to have discussion, I think the proper method is to take it off the consent agenda, have the board discuss it, accept then go through accepting the report or the recommendations. And if you discuss something that's on the consent agenda, you kind of undo the advantage of having it there. But, you know, I was told when I was growing up that you could get to Dartmouth by way of Bedford, you know, and ultimately ended up in Dartmouth, so.
Well, it's an interesting point. I always presumed that it was discussion of the motion, not necessarily other questions that could be asked outside of that. And I guess that's why that practice is taken root in the city. Because you can dispense the question and you save yourself a whole nother series of motions of moving and seconding and other space on the agenda if the question could be answered really quickly. And they often are. And sometimes as a counselor adding information
Right.
for, but
Well, I don't believe that we should feel constrained by what any authority, your procedural bylaw trumps everything. So if there's something you don't like inside of Robert's Rules of Order, we can put in our bylaw specifics that contradict it, and it becomes, we only use Robert's Rules when our practice is not identified in our procedural bylaw. So that's, I mean, that's a point that it's absolutely within the board's authority to structure its consent agenda that way. And we can do research on how different organizations use consent agendas and work that back through the governance committee.
Madam Chair, I think the important thing's already there, that it just takes one person to put their hand up to pull an item off, and move it into the regular agenda. I think that's the point, but
Yes.
it's absolutely necessary.
Yes. And if there is to be any discussion, they have to raise their hand. It has to come off that ascended agenda. Then as soon as we're through that, then they talk and then we pass the motion and I'll for that. Good point. Thank you.
Yeah, I like the consent agenda.
Yes.
Yes,
I'm good with them.
yes,
I'm good with it.
yes,
There,
yes,
good as well.
yes,
I'm good with it.
and I'm good with it. So the answer is yes. Okay. We have one left.
One last, Madam Chair, which refers to the budget process, and particularly the change from 45 days to 15 days. And I think that this question requires some historical context. So originally, the budget rules required 45 days for communities to be able to consider the budget that the board wanted it to look at. And at the beginning, we had several directors who were not on side with the formation of regional service commissions, and they were they represented unincorporated areas. And like some other regional service commissions, their objective was to try to sabotage and hold hostage the organization, and so that nothing would be done, no costs would go to that community. And what they would do is they would show up at the budget meeting and propose a number of amendments to the budget, which is really unfair to the municipal directors, who then had no opportunity to refer these budget changes back to their communities for review. And so we established this requirement for prior written notice of any amendment that was going to be offered for 30 days, so that we would distribute the budget. Communities would have 15 days, directors would have 15 days to look at it and propose amendments. We would then, if we receive amendments, we would distribute them to the communities. They would have time to consider the impact of that, and if they were substantive, we often had our entire October meeting directed to the impact of what those potential amendments would do. Right now, our bylaw says you need 30 days prior written notice, but you only require 15 days for communities to do that. So we need to align that. And our thinking is that when we deal with the impact of timing, that if we're going to provide 15 days, that a prior written notice of 7 days would be appropriate. It would give communities a week to consider whether or not they wanted to offer an amendment, and then it would give the rest of the directors a week to consider the impact of that amendment and still be within the 15-day period. So that's our suggestion, and we're wondering how you feel about that.
Okay, I'll start with you this time, Director Faulkner.
I'm fine, switching to just the 7-day notice. That would work fine. I'm okay with that.
Director Hayward.
I would, thank you, Madam Chair, I would ask for a little more clarity on exactly how that numbers will break down. So from initially, there is can you repeat that part of the?
Sure, so if tonight was a meeting where the board decided we want our communities to consider this budget. The way that happens is before we leave that night, we press send, because it's all ready to go, right? And so tomorrow morning, all the communities would have the budget in their hands. And they would have 7 days to review it. Well, they would review it. And if they wanted to offer an amendment, they would have to do it within 7 days of having received the budget. So you have a week. And when we get those amendments in here, we would turn them around and send them out to everybody again. And now you have 7 days to consider the impact of the budget, the amendment, and compare it to the actual budget. And all of that can happen inside the 15-day envelope.
But there's no change in the timeline beyond that original 15 days, correct?
Right,
Yeah, I was a little confused on how
Right.
that.
right now,
Delivered.
this year, we can send the budget out and have a vote on it 15 days later, rather than 45 days.
Mhm. So you're, just for clarity, you're just looking for alignment on
Yes.
changing the others, the
Yes.
second 7
Yeah.
days.
Just the notice. You know, how long do we allow? Well, I guess there's a larger question, and I shouldn't have assumed this. Do you want to have prior written notice of amendments that may be offered when the budget vote is called?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Not surprised to hear that. So, how soon do you want to know what those potential amendments might be?
I would support the 7 days.
Yes,
What kind of processes are you imagining happens at our home institutions when a document is received at 8 PM and a 7-day countdown starts? Because for the city of Fredericton, staff probably could turn something around in that time frame. But if we want to actually consult our council colleagues and establish a committee, we'd have to declare a special meeting or hope that a standing committee is happening in that time frame. Like, I don't know if a week's enough for us to actually access the formal governance system in the city.
So, Madam Chair, quite frankly, that's outside my area of expertise, responsibility, and ability. So the question was, how much do I think about that?
Well, no, is this an administrative process or a governance process that we're supposed to be doing with budget information that comes to us?
So, that's a really good question to ask. Directors are under no obligation to refer the budget to their council. Directors are absolutely empowered as directors of this organization, having a fiduciary responsibility to just come and vote however they feel. And we have had a number of directors who did that, who didn't bother to refer the budget to their council. We have had directors that have gone to their councils and said, this is how I'm going to vote. And then we've had directors who want to have a resolution from their council directing them how to vote. So all of those processes are valid. But you asked the governance question, there's no obligation. However, that doesn't fly in many of our communities. I'm aware of that, and that's a valid choice that they make. So the city of Fredericton meets much more frequently than any other council that we have. I know that many of our councils only meet once a month. And this may not align with that. They may have to call a special meeting. From our perspective as staff and from our perspective as an organization, we can't really control that. There's just too many variables. It's along the lines of trying to schedule a meeting here. The matrix that we have to go through that, because we have all of your council meeting dates, all of your committee meeting dates. They're in a 31-day month. There are 2 dates that we have a good chance of getting quorum. This being one of them, first Tuesday of the month.
Well, if I'm to put forward an opinion, 2 weeks would still serve our interest better, and I would like to see the procedural bylaw reflect a situation that allows for the most value to accrue to a decision. And I think by giving time for both administrative and governance processes to potentially work, we'd achieve that. So 2 weeks instead of 7 days.
So, Madam Chair, just to let staff understand that if 2 weeks is 14 days. If we don't put in our bylaw requirement to exceed 15 days, that would only give 1 day for people to receive the amendment and develop an opinion on the amendment.
If you went with a minimum time frame,
Right.
the province allows.
Right.
Which we don't have to do.
That's what I said.
So have you changed your mind or, no, okay, I just gotta make sure.
I think that the 7 day alignment is good. It gives it falls within the 14 days. Nothing says that we can't start the 7 days and 7 days in advance of the 15 days limit if we're done and ready. And so just to get it aligned and in the sake of being easier, I think somebody mentioned that earlier. I would like to see us aligned on that.
Thank you.
In favor of the 7 days.
7 days,
Also, yep.
7 days.
I think 7 days is too tight. I've never asked my council to vote on the budget. But I've always briefed them on what's happening within the budget. And I feel that they have the right to know what's happening at their service commission and what's happening with the budget. So when we're talking about governance, say, well, we can run that through and we can get it all done. But when we're talking about community buy-in and building the strength of the commission, I see the value in having some opportunity for conversation. And when it's 7 days, hit the button, CAO gets it the next morning. Within 2 days, we have to call a special meeting because we need 3 days to call a special meeting. And so there we are. And then no one shows because we're all busy too. So I'm just thinking it's too tight from my point of view. That's
What would you suggest?
the 2 weeks would be.
2 weeks, 2 weeks.
I'm good with 7 days, and here's my reasoning. I'm the voting member here for Central York. I can come and vote at my discretion. I don't need to ask council, but I respect my council. I want them to know and I want their input. So I use email and I will have an answer in 2 to 3 hours of what they're thinking. I don't need a special meeting. They will tell me pros and cons or try to advise me the way they think I should vote. But at the end of the day, I come here and I vote for Central York. But I do, like I said, respect the opinion of my council, and I can get that without a meeting. So 7 days is fine. It's the electronic world.
Director?
I agree with the 7 days and especially on the budget aspect, because if it is the budget and you want to make a change or whatever else, and call a special meeting, bring the people in, because it is money. You want to, so if they're concerned, really concerned, they're gonna take the meeting. And this going on, if we're going to 15 days for the other, leaving the other one for 14 days, just doesn't compute. So if it's 7 days and it's money in the budget, then they're gonna come if they're concerned, they're gonna be at that special meeting. Or use an email like he does too. I like that. I get too many of them though.
Thank you. Director Fox,
7 days.
7 days.
I'm good with the 7 days.
I
Director Tom?
prefer at least 10 days.
Okay, no. I do think 7 days might be a little tight. So we could add a few days onto it. I would be comfortable with that. Make sure that my council gets time to look at it. Yes, Director Fox.
Oh, I don't want to interrupt. I'm just gonna hold my spot. Just wanted to make a comment.
It's okay, go ahead.
Cause I'm saying 7 days, but it's on the presumption that we have finance committee prepare the budget and bring it to a committee. The committee of the board has ample time to discuss it and get it, some of the kinks ironed out before we get to that next level where we have the 15 days. And that's the presumption that I'm making, is that hopefully we'll have it to a position where we're all very comfortable for putting it forward in front of our counselors. And so that's why I'm saying 7 days is a lot. So
Sure.
just to clarify.
No, that's good. Thank you. So, Don, you took note with this consensus to 7 days?
It seems to be, Madam Chair, I might say, as the board can see, there's a lot to digest here. And typically we bring, through the governance committee, bylaw revisions to the annual general meeting in April. I think it's fair to say that that schedule is going to present a challenge. I think we need to go back as a result of this, work with the governance committee, take guidance, develop drafts, options for them. And so I want to put the hand up right now and say, there's a lot to digest here. I'm not in favor, whatever the board's pleasure is, but I would advise that we take the time to do this right, as opposed to try and meet an annual general meeting on the first Tuesday in April.
Thank you. So would you like to, that's everything?
That's it, Madam Chair.
Would you like to put the motion on the floor, please?
I move that the board receive the report of the governance committee dated March 4th, 2025.
Second by,
Dave Morrison.
any discussion? No, who was going to second it? No discussion, ready for the question? All those in
Question.
favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, motion. Thank you. Director Sweeney, staff reports, A, commission voting procedures, staff member Don Fitzgerald, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
So, Madam Chair, continuing on in terms of dealing with things that were raised in the MC advisory report, one of those comments, quite understandably so, and I think more than one, was could be summarized as saying, "What's up with the voting system?" And the reason for that is that we have 4 of them. And depending on the type of decision that's before us, what voting system that we use. So I put together a little PowerPoint presentation to sort of summarize the high points. And in your package, I have included the provincial voting guidelines form, which identifies 4 different types of votes required, and gives example of the types of decisions that fall within each of those categories. So we have 4 voting methods. One covers administrative items. One covers services. One covers fees and borrowing. And one applies specifically to the budget. And my hope here today is that perhaps at the end of this presentation, we might demystify those. And don't feel bad if you don't walk away remembering everything about this, because we work with it every day, and you see it once a month, and it's not straightforward. I guess it's the best way to say it. For administrative matters, which would include the approval of contracts, the regional strategy, election of chairs, vice chairs, moving money into reserve accounts and out of reserve accounts. We use a simple majority of all members present. And what that does, it gives equal representation to all the directors and their underlying communities, regardless of the population size or the financial contribution. So if we jump to the voting guidelines form, this form here, which is at the end of the PowerPoint, the second column in that table references the areas of the legislation that determine what these are. And then in the 4th column, we have examples. And in the 5th column, we have the voting type. So going to tender, approving of our strategy. Voting on board procedures, governance, the kind of protocols, the decision that we just had, that we talked about today, that's an administrative item. The next type of voting system that we use is for services. And inside of services, we look for a simple majority of the weighted votes. And I'll talk in a little more detail about how the votes are weighted on the next slide. These are used for the approval and the operation of a service. And for this, we need a simple majority of the total weighted votes of the members present. And in our region, there are 21 votes. Things that fall into this category are amendment to contracts, undertaking further activities or changes beyond the existing scope of a service, new multi-sports center, determination of who will share the cost of regional infrastructure. And what this voting system does, it gives proportional influence based on a community size. And the reason that they consider community size, the legislators did, is because community size is a proxy for financial contribution. So if we just flip down, Kelly, from here, the way that these weighted votes are handed out or determined is that every community gets a vote. And then in our region, like the other two large regions, a community that has a population in excess of 10,000 gets an additional vote for each 10,000 in their population. So in Fredericton's case, the population used for Fredericton until the next audit is 60,000 something. So they get 6 extra votes. Oromocto's is somewhere around 12,000, I believe. So that's 1 unit of 10,000, so they get an extra vote. So our 21 votes, the way that we get them is Fredericton has 7, Oromocto has 2, and all other communities have 1. So when we deal with the services vote, that's what we tally up. And so for 21, 12 votes is a majority. Our next category is fees and borrowing. So we borrow money and we set fees. And so the fees that we set are tipping fees at the landfill, crack planning fees, the planning cost is a fee. It's based on the tax rate. And in this category, we require 2/3 of the weighted votes from members present. So not just a straight majority, a super majority. And the reason for this is that it gives a proportionate say in service costs, which include finance charges, the cost of the debt. So in this category, which is the yellow bar that goes across, fees to be charged for crack, tonnage fees, new landfill cell. Now, the new landfill cell is not a fee. And I would say that because this table was developed by the environment and local government staff who aren't expert in our operations. So there are some things listed here that don't actually exist, but the concept is valid. Waste management collection equipment, transportation infrastructure, boring for an office building, or in our case, more often, rolling stock for the landfill. And fees for RTI requests. And it's interesting that the provincial government put that in because they also have legislation that says you're not allowed to charge a fee for RTI requests. So again, I just want to say that this document's conceptually correct, but I would not use the word accurate to describe it. I hope they're not watching.
I'll hear it tomorrow.
And if we could go to the last one, Kelly, the budget. Our budget process has its own unique voting system that I hope you're familiar with. But for this to pass, we need 2/3 of the voting members present. So we need a supermajority of the members, but those members have to represent at least 51% of the population represented at a budget meeting. So we come into a budget meeting, we have a spreadsheet. And if someone doesn't attend, we delete a row, the columns automatically recalculate. And so that's what Mary Kay works with. And so when we go around and we do the budget vote, we sit here and we wonder and we wait for Mary Kay to nod or shake her head. That's how that works. This is structured to kind of balance, if we go back one, Kelly, balance the regional representation by considering both the number of members and the population portion. The 51% requirement has been the subject of much discussion. As contextual information, you should be aware that in version 1 of the Regional Service Commissions, that number was 66%. So this formula is actually more flexible than the one that commission started with. But having said that, you know, we should focus on the future, not the past. And so the question is, how do you know? Like, and so what you'll find in all of the staff reports that come together, I just clipped this one. It's about acquiring compactor. There'll always be a highlighted section that says this decision relates to the operation or administration of a common service. Requires a majority count of the votes accorded to directors present based on the weighted voting formula. This will always be somewhere in your staff report. In preparation for developing this this PowerPoint, I became aware that some staff put that at the beginning of their staff report and some just below where the recommendation comes. One's not better than the other, but we will standardize that for you. So that's kind of how it works. And Madam Chair, I'd be happy to take any questions. And I'd be happy to come back regularly and have this presentation because, as I said, if you're not working with it every day, it's easy to lose sight of.
Right. I do like, when I get my package and if there's a motion, it's always there for us, either at the beginning or at the end. And, that's good to know. You have a question? Yes.
My question is, in regards to the weighted voting based on population. At what frequency is that population number updated or reflected or changed?
So the population, Madam Chair, the population is changed after each audit, each census. And so the next census will be 2026. So sometime in 2027, the province will get new information and do the work that they need to do to our communities aren't exact census tracts. So when we get population data, it doesn't line up perfectly with the new communities. So it comes in, they'll do their thing, and then they'll say, here, this is the population to be used, and store that it's not changed until next audit. Census. We're going through our financial audit right now. Audit on the top of my mind.
Yes,
Does anyone else have any questions? Yes,
And Don, thank you. This is very comprehensive. I think you've taken a very complex system and done a really good job presenting it. But I had trouble kind of aligning in my own head, why we do ward boundary reviews to make sure that, as a counselor, I represent the close to the same number of citizens as my colleagues on my own council. But that thinking kind of goes out the window when we start weighting votes, doesn't it? And I know these systems are very different, but
yeah. So our weighting adjusts every 5 years as a result of a census. I can remember it took large number of years before we were able to balance Parker's Point with Nashwauk Six. Right, so there are always inefficiencies between wards. Wards is a good word because our communities here really represent the wards of this region. The structure, the different structures that we have try to respond to balancing size. They, in my opinion, by definition, they create some tension. Which I think is good in terms of trying to get to a collaborative decision. It inherently ranks the severity, if you will, or the impact of decisions. And it says, philosophically, it says administrative decisions aren't that important. And so everybody gets a vote, everyone plays, everyone is heard. And then when we start to talk about services, where different communities consume more of the service, well, now we're going to do weighted votes. And so presumably the communities who use more of the services and pay more of the cost would have more influence. And all the way down the line till we have our model for budget. I know that in my former life, working for a municipality, I thought that everything should be weighted, not based on population. I had the best interest of the municipality at mind. I've subsequently come to believe that that won't work, you know, while that might be philosophically right, it won't work practically. So we have a system that is somewhere in the middle. You know, by definition, it can't be perfect. It's not perfect. So in version 3, I think we'll see some changes. Version 3 should be 8 to 10 years down the road, based on our experience. I think we might see some changes there.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions? No, Director Faulkner?
I don't know.
No, I'm good. I'm good.
What are the percentages by community, by municipality?
So I do have those here. Now, we are subject to my electronic filing system. And if you look at my desk, it's really, really neat. If you look in my electronic files.
Not so much.
Not at all. So I don't have percentages, but I have numbers. So the population that we're dealing with right now are Fredericton at 67,567. Oromocto at 11,905. The rural district is 9,552. Sunbury York South is 7,466. Central York is 7,278. Hanwell is 7,100. Grand Lake is 5,823. Nashwauk is 4,777. New Maryland is 4,153. Harvey is 3,899. Nacowick Millville is 3,781. Arcadia is 3,730. Fredericton Junction is 719. And Tracy is 610. For a total of 138,360.
Okay. Thank you.
And what we'll undertake to do is, we'll provide those numbers to you and the percentage. We can follow that up easily in an email.
Thank you.
And so you can get all of them.
That's one I want.
So nothing further? Thank you, Don, for that. That was very educational. Thank you. So we'll move on now to the CEO report, verbal update. Staff member John Smith, please.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair, through you to the members, Madam Chair, we just wanted to let everyone, or remind everyone, or I want to remind everyone. you would have received an invitation from Kelly and that the agreement of the chairs of the Economic Expansion Committee and the Community Development Committee, Directors Nickland and Hayward respectively. We're going to be having a joint meeting, and this will include a presentation from Jennifer Peck from the Department of Health. I noticed the sent all directors, all counselors and staff are invited to participate. Just let Kelly know, and she'll be sending out the Zoom links to whoever needs them and whoever wants. And that way, Jennifer's a very dynamic presenter. She's a really interesting person. She's a recruiting consultant with the province of Brunswick. And she'll walk us through the Department of Health process that they use in terms of physician recruitment. We're also working with the Department of Health and the two physician recruitment teams here in the region to put on a resident weekend in July. The residents will be able to participate in many activities in the city and within Oromocto and throughout the region. And we're just in the process of finalizing those details. We're expecting as many as 16 residents to be present for that or to participate. And we'll certainly have more details out as we have them developed. I've also reached out, everybody, I suspect, Madam Chair, that everybody, all communities have received an invitation from the Department of Health with respect to Dr. Ravni Comstock. She's the primary healthcare co-lead for the region, along with Melly Lockhart. And so they're looking at that. I've reached out to them and invited them to ask them to participate in the meeting with the board, that we could share some information and insight and get an update on their status, what they're doing, and how we can align ourselves and better understand their needs as well for the region. And so I've met with Dr. Comstock in the past, last July, I believe it was. Very dynamic individual. And she also has a military background and has a full practice as well. She's a very capable individual. And I think you'll find her to be very interesting when we meet. At that point in time, we'd asked her if she wanted to come meet the board when they would. She said, look, let's get our process laid out. Let's get some information out there, and let's come back and have that fulsome dialogue. And I know that some of your communities are in conversations with her and her team, but I just want to let you know that we'll be looking at that from the regional perspective as well. We've reached out to set a meeting with Premier Holt, and she gladly accepted. That was the offer was made through our chair, Director Wilson Shee, and we were at we actually took advantage of being at the coldest night of the year walk. And Premier Holt had a big team and had a crew there. They raised a lot of money, and it was very engaging. We had the opportunity to have a good chat. It was brief, but it was good. And we invited her out, and she more than willingly accepted it, Madam Chair. She accepted right away. And so more details, we're just waiting on trying to get a date set around that, and we'll keep everybody informed. So that could result in a special meeting, or could be part of a regular scheduled meeting. But certainly looking to hear from her. And at that time, to some of our previous conversations around fiscal reform and and certain tweaks or changes that could be potentially made to the RSC system, we'll certainly know by then what's on the table, and the legislature will be open, and it'd be a great time to have those conversations. So, and I'm often asked, Madam Chair, how are we viewed by other RSCs in the province? And I just want to let all the directors know that in our community development area, the 8 initiatives that were passed by the board and advanced forward. Some of those are starting to take light, and some of them have been conducted. One of them in particular was a speed dating concept in terms of trying to link people together so that not-for-profits and individuals and others could be linked together through that. And we've recently had requests to follow our model within that. And we've reached out to other the RSCs to look at their models for different things as well. So we're all sharing. I think we're viewed very positively. We're certainly proactive at the table. And when we meet with other CEOs around the province, we certainly are more than engaged. And the chair and I will be attending meetings in May in St. John, in the end of April, early May. We're just getting the dates and or the agenda finalized, and that will be with the other CEOs, chairs, and UMNB and AFMNB will be present for a portion of those meetings as well. So it's just continuing dialogue, trying to work with the other commissions, ensure that we're aligned and that we certainly have any areas of common interest are being advanced. And it's a good networking opportunity for us as well. And we'll certainly keep you abreast of whatever happens at those meetings. We've on the community development side, we've submitted our strategic outline for consideration to move forward with what we're referring to as a synergy study. If you remember back to some of the amendments that were made around the budget, there was one that we gladly accepted right out of the gate, which dealt with duplication, the potential for duplication in other communities, and to ensure that we didn't duplicate, that we were replicating best practices and we're learning from one another. So this strategy, this is part of that. The other part would be develop our strategy, which is part of our strategic plan. And then part of that is to come up with, to put forward some projects to the board to look at that we could advance through the province, primarily with the Department of Social Justice or Social Development under our social mandate. So a lot happening. We're waiting for, we put that plan forward, and certainly I've been in discussions with the province on that. And we should hear this week or early next week on that in terms of the assistance to help on that process. So we're continuing to work and knock on the doors and shake the trees and the piggy bank for whatever we can. So again, that was part of the budget discussion in 2024 leading for our 2025 budget. And we're listening and we're continuing on that. If you recall at the January 24th forum, you participated in polling to give staff direction. And we also presented the MC advisory report, and both said that you wanted more training on the weighted voting process. And I just wanted to let you know that's why Don gave that report tonight. We're listening, and we're taking those reports. When you do those polling activities and you give us some direction, we want you to know that you're being heard. We're going down through the list, and we're kind of, you know, we're a little bit like Santa. We're checking the list and checking it twice, and you know, hopefully nobody's naughty, but we're hoping everyone's going to be nice. So anyway, we've been doing that, and that's why we did it. And as part of the forum, there was also discussion on governance and how to proceed in greater transparent manner on issues, you know, like the development of the CRSC budget. Again, your professional staff around the room here, you know, we often, you know, normally we'd have Mary Kay and Lonnie with us as well. But Brett is with us, Don is here, Kelly's here, I'm here, Wendy's here taking note of everything for us. And but your staff is listening. We're hearing you. We take these things serious. When the members speak, we want to deliver. So we just want you to know that you're being heard, or I want you to know that you're being heard. You also asked more non-transactional time to get to one another better and have opportunities to communicate, talk, things like that. Well, I think the February meeting and tonight's meeting prior to the board meeting gave us great opportunity for that. If you listened around the table for the first meeting, I know the chair and I were there, and we're kind of looking at one another at about the first 20-minute mark and said, everybody's pretty near done eating. What are we going to do now? And I got to be honest, there wasn't I didn't hear a dull moment. I didn't hear a period of silence within that. There was a lot of chatter, and I'm not saying that you're all talkers. I'm just saying there was a lot of good things to talk about. So we had that and we're listening and we're trying to do those things. We're gonna get better at that as we go along. We're going to continue on those things as well, and we're looking for opportunities for team building events with the board outside of a board meeting or just prior to a board meeting. So we're trying to look at those, and some of the members around this table have offered their community centers, their own personal I'll say luxury craft, in my world, their luxury craft, to maybe take a boat ride or to do something and get together and just see one another in a different light other than a workspace, and to try to build that camaraderie in that team. In terms of that, and at the AGM in April, like I said, we've reached out to Dr. Comstock and her team. We'll see in and around that time, or maybe it'd be later or earlier, I don't know. Looking at that meeting with Horizon in terms of understanding what it is and their primary care that they're advancing. Had a chat with our, gosh, I gotta call him former director Leadwell now, former director Leadwell before he left, just before the meeting. And, he was saying that they felt that very strong that they were being heard by the different groups, and he wanted to get his opportunity to speak to Dr. Comstock. So he reached out directly before leaving his post, and he felt well that they had been heard as a community, and that he had been heard as a community leader, as a mayor, and as director of our board. So as part of our transparency with communities, we're planning an open house with all staff in June. So we're going to have all of your staff that you see here at these meetings, committee meetings. You'll be able to invite people in. We're going to have that as a wide open house. We're really hopeful that and I don't mean this in a joking way, that will be at the new space. In terms of that, we've been getting ribbed a little bit, but we want to make sure we do things, do it right with all developments. There are always the occasional delays, so we're just in that world right now, but we're hoping to get there soon. But at the same time, when we did the polling, the overwhelming response from the board was, in order to create some transparency with the community and the community leadership, your counselors, your CAOs, your other staff, how do we invite them in and how do we engage in terms of that? And it was through the open house process where you could ask questions, you could meet the team, you could see the site, you can be part of it. And that was twice a year. So we're really hoping to be able to do that in June. And speaking of transparency, we've had a couple of times we've had counselors call and ask about different mandated services. We've had in recent, I had a couple of calls regarding Ignite and regarding tourism. When you call, or if any of your elected officials or your CAOs call, though, if you recall, as part of our contractual obligation with both organizations, that's a conversation for myself with the other groups. Anytime that I've received a call or anytime an issue's been raised, we've gotten back within days, if not hours, to respond in terms of that. I know there's been some communities around the table, and once the conversation starts, the issue kind of resolves itself and goes right out the window. Are we kicking it out of the park and everything? I'd say we got a real good record, really high percentage. I won't guess that percentage. Is there still work to do? Of course there is. There's always work to do, but we're willing to work with you. We're willing to work with your teams. We're willing to work with the communities. We just need to know, I need to know, because I have to be your point of reference, or I should be your point of reference, according to our MOUs and our obligations. If there's an issue, please give me a call. We'll get it solved within a short period. And if you want any of the groups to appear, or you want updates, to come to your committee, to your community, present to your council, just let us know. We're pretty darn good at going out there. I know you see, for many of you, you see Lonnie more so than you see the rest of us. But we're always willing to make accommodations to go out and help in the communities. I make that offer again tonight. I make it often. But sometimes we're taken up on it and sometimes we're not. But if you want us to come and you want our team to come and have that conversation, let us know. We'll make arrangements. We're proud of the work that we're doing. We're proud of the work that we're doing on your behalf. And we're proud of the team and how it's coming together. And away we go. So we'll try to help as absolutely best as we can. Also, I just wanted to show you something. Kelly, if you could pull up the Ignite photo there, or the thing we're doing with Ignite. So of course, tariffs, obviously, I don't know who didn't hear about tariffs today, but we all have. These are going to be some rolling ads that you're going to see promoting our, the region and Ignite and asking about the tariffs. Ignite has gone through, and you'll see a rolling clip underneath them that tells you what kind of service they can, what they can do. So the free expert guidance, connection to funding and resources, powerful network to help you succeed. And, we talk about understanding tariffs can be overwhelming, but we're here, Ignite is here to help get the expert advice, funding connections, and business support all in one place. They put a complete package to navigate. If you have a business and you need help with it, or you have a community business that needs help, send them off to Ignite. If there's an issue, let me know. We'll get a hold of them right away. And there's all kinds of resources that they have. This won't just be, oh, here, this is it, or, oh, here's another website or something. There's lots of opportunities in terms of what they're offering to help. They want to help navigate. There's ONB navigators. There's the folks at ACOA that are ready to help. There's all kinds of different government agencies that can help. And they can be the traffic cop for you in terms of sending that out and getting people out there. Let's use the service that you're paying for. Let's use the service that we're partnered with, and let's use it to our advantage to help local businesses succeed, whether they're large or small. Had 2 or 3 calls today over to Sarah and the team, and people were saying, thank you, I got a call back. So it works. We just really need to use those tools that are at our disposal and really build that brand, in terms of the Capital Region Service Commission and the regional brand and your individual brands and how we all integrate together. And as you see earlier from the Ignite site, you go on the Ignite site, every time you roll up, it's the same with Fredericton Capital Region Tourism. All of your names, all of the communities are represented. All of us are there together. And it all rolls, and it tells us stories, takes us to, events, locations, opportunities, whatever that may need be. We need to just use that. So I just wanted to let you know that if you see that out, that falls under workforce, labor force development and funding. Try to keep our workforce and our labor force fully engaged and growing and not declining in the capital area, in the capital region, so that we can get out there ahead of this and work with our businesses. Upcoming meetings, I just want to let everyone know that the audit committee will be meeting on March 5th. Regional infrastructure, we may need to, and I'm looking over at Director Duplessis because he'll be filling the role as chair until we determine how we structure the committee there in former Director Pleadwell's absence. So I wanted to make sure that we're looking to probably postpone or change the date of the infrastructure meeting. And due to the fact that on March 17th, we're having the joint meeting, and that's when we were scheduled. So on March 25th, I apologize. Sorry, that was the day of the audit committee. And we kind of can't have both at once. So we kind of overscheduled, but it's not from lack of wanting to work. I mean, you only have two committee meetings simultaneously. Good. PRAC will be meeting on March 25th as well, and our annual general meeting is April 1st. And thank you, Madam Chair. That concludes my CEO report, just on trying to create more transparency of responding to questions or concerns that may be in the region and trying to keep people abreast of things. This is always reported in the minutes. And if anyone wants any.
I'll start with Director Fox. I know you mentioned it, but there's no specific date when we'll be moving into the new office space, is there?
Not at this point. It's tied up in the process of having designing a firewall so that because we didn't take the entire floor and it's not one contiguous open space that's rented by us. There are other tenants. The wall that we're putting in to divide the space needed a firewall. I don't say that lightly. Our own inspectors agreed with that and said that that is something that you really need to, that's a safety measure that we can't avoid. And so work has been delayed, but we're still planning and we're still in contact with the office and our consultant on the file. Our former chair has also been working with Don quite closely, and we're looking at that. I don't know, Madam Chair, if Don has anything further to add.
2 weeks. I continue to hear the word.
I thought that's what we heard the last time. We will be patient.
In December, staff meeting, I advised the staff, we were packing up, I advised them, Madam Chair, I said, like all moves, our move will not go well. And that's proven to be the case.
Thank you. Director Fox?
Yeah, I just wanted to get it on record and thank John and his staff for helping our community and bringing this on behalf of the community. For their assistance in our Housing Accelerator Fund 2 application that was accepted and were awarded. So wanted to express that gratitude. Please pass it on to the staff that helped work on that, because means a lot to our community. It's 1.7 million, roughly 1.7 million over the next 4 years. So it's big help for us. Well, appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Thank you for bringing that forward.
Madam Chair, if I may, just to put a plug in for Lonnie and the team, Director Fox, if you don't mind. I asked Lonnie to get down a list and give us the services offered through our planning and development team on behalf of the Capital Region Service Commission to those who use the services. We offer more services under planning and development to the communities that we serve. It's my understanding that any other commission in the province. Yeah. So I just want you to know that that's how hard they work. Small, nimble team, but they work hard.
Thank you. Yes.
Quick suggestion, this should be sent out to all the directors.
In terms
That list should be sent out, of what the services that are planning and development office.
of, not a problem. We can get that from Lonnie.
Just as we do get questions sometimes from councillors.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just good to.
Okay, anyone else have any questions? Director Faulkner? No? Okay, well, thank you very much for that. Appreciate it. The motion to go into closed session, second by,
Second, Tim Fox.
okay, we're going into closed session and I have to ask you, Director Faulkner, are you by yourself?
Yes.
Thank you. Wait till staff leaves and then. Pass that down.